Beyond the headlines. This is World Insight.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Artificial intelligence is reshaping our world today, from society to individual life. But who laid the groundwork for this digital world? Dr. Whitfield Diffie is the man to ask. As a world-renowned Turing Award recipient and a member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering, he is widely regarded as the founding father of modern digital security. His pioneering work on public key cryptography remains the bedrock of the global digital economy today. I did catch up with him at the recent Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence conference. We talked about the evolving relationship between AI and humanity and whether governance can keep pace with rapid tech changes. Professor Diffie, what a pleasure to see you.
Well, thank you.
You talk about a number of crucial issues related to AI today. For example, what is exactly the definition of so-called artificial intelligence?
I prefer the term machine intelligence because I don't see anything. Artificial makes something sound phony. Something, I understand it just means an artifice is something people made, but that word is used so often. An artifice in experimentation is an error that's due to the structure of the experiment, for example.
Especially when we are facing what some call AGI, meaning that there might be recursive self-improvement, so to speak.
Well, I think that's what I concluded by saying.
Meaning?
My closing remarks were, is AI or am I going to take over the world? I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think that machines offer to do things for people. People like that. People say yes. And at some point we will look around and we will see the machines are doing everything. And there won't be anything we can do about it. Human beings, as we know them today, I think are not long for the world. And that the two successors will be things that we call machines, things that are built out of transistors, basically, and things that we call bioengineered. You know, we'll start out by producing, I believe, what's called in motor racing, you have a notion of a blueprinted car. This is a standard car, except all the parts are exactly right. They're not accurate to a hundredth of a meter, they're accurate to a thousandth of a meter, or 10,000ths of a meter. And so I think we're going to get blueprinted human beings that by whatever genetic manipulation mechanisms, and the one that's well known as CRISPR, but much better ones are being developed. And so there's no reason that the same human being shouldn't have a fine heart, good lungs, very sensitive taste and smell, a good sense of touch, strength to run a long way, very smart, etc. And you just put this all together in one person. So now you have a population of people, each one of whom is better than we are today in essentially every direction.
June the 12th. SpaceX, for example.
SpaceX isn't AI. SpaceX, I think that's just an example of Elon Musk's financial genius at these things. And so I do not know. SpaceX is a very important phenomenon. We shall see if it continues to transform the way in which space figures in human affairs. But the fact that it's the largest IPO in the world, I think is his genius at engineering that very fact as a fundamental objective, where many people probably, the IPO is just one step along the way. They were really trying to make a spaceship and they IPO'd at some point. No, he's really trying to IPO. The spaceships are one mechanism for that.
So too much hyping in the commercial world.
Well,
in terms of AI, artificial intelligence.
Judge how much is too much?
Well, you have a personal judgment. You've been seeing different generations of technologies, how they are, commercialized. For example, with the internet age.
The internet produces another interesting example because lots of money was lost investing in internet possibilities, and only a small number of people sort of did the right thing, and Google became hugely successful, and Amazon became hugely successful. wise colleagues I have didn't think that Amazon Web Services was going to work, but I think the fact that they had other ways of paying the costs of their computers allowed them to get into that, and then once they got into it a certain way, it became a success.
So from technology to real productive force, there's a long way to go, and there seem to be a lot of different elements, having an impact on it, whether it was successful or not.
What we have in the world is the products that are business successes, not the best products. And so, I mean, the example that is at the heart of my life was that Intel chips were far from the best technical. The Motorola chips were better, the Sun chips were better, the digital equipment chips were better. But for business reasons, all of the better chips went away. Now, the technology changed in another way that made it less important exactly what the chip did. But then, in another sense, the British company ARM managed to make some quite good chips and use that fact, I think, to capture a lot of the market.
Are you worried about the bubbles might burst soon?
I don't know what will be the effect of the bubble bursting. I mean, yeah, a lot of people will complain about the money they lost. Now, will there be a waste? Huge computer centers have been built. Will they be torn down, go unused? I don't know the answer. Maybe somebody will find something else to do with them. Or maybe enough of these businesses will be successful that the data centers, will be seen to be worthwhile. We could ask similar things. There's a similar phenomenon of railways in the 19th century, particularly in Britain, and of roads, various places in the 20th century. You put a lot of money into developing roads. After a while, they produce an economy that wouldn't have been there without the roads, but you don't know exactly how to credit. You weren't able to draw up a plan and say, we're going to spend, $1 billion something on roads because we know they'll produce $100 billion in revenue, and we're going to get it back by taxing, by buying, I don't know. So the point is that I guess my acute awareness is that lots of things happen, and for some of them I foresee and some of them I don't.
Because there's a lot of debate about exactly the huge amount of capital would mean for the future direction of artificial intelligence and its applications.
This is another artifact of capitalism. You have the major companies are all, I think, doing basically the same thing. They're building larger and larger language models. If the world built only one of them, there'd be a tenth the investment and the same return to the world, but not to the individual investor.
But there are arguments like that saying we should have a world, so-called a larger language model that would incorporate everything. And what do you think about that? Is it possible?
Is it politically possible? I don't know the answer to that.
Technologically possible, definitely.
I don't know the answer to that either. That would require more than I know about how you integrate these things. I mean, could you build something that has 10 centers 1,000 kilometers apart? Or do they need to be real close together? I don't know the answer.
AI governance or safety, security. You witness the establishment of standards incorporating cryptography into the internet age. Do you think those standards have been successful? What do you think can be some of the lessons and inspirations that the current so-called AI age could learn from the earlier time?
So there seems to me they're somewhat different issues. And we needed the standards in cryptography and other internet standards just in order to be able to communicate and to get the internet to work. And those are not standards for what the internet ought to do for people, right? So the standards don't somehow directly address. The internet turned out to be a huge business success, but the standards are not aimed at guaranteeing that, at preventing bad effects, etc. Now, the thing people are talking about standards and regulation in AIs is something I worry a lot about, which is giving the AIs power to tell people where to go. And so whenever I hear about guardrails, I worry that you're simply going to have, now you've told the computers they can tell people, no, we won't We won't tell you this. We know it. We can figure it out for you, but we don't want to tell it to you. And I think that will be, to the degree that I'm a species chauvinist, I am very unhappy to see the notion that AIs will be making decisions about what people are able to do.
You were talking about the 3 laws of robotics earlier in your speech. The principle 1, principle 2, principle 3, how do they work with one another?
I say it for 2 reasons. One thing is how little that that's 90 years old, those notions, and how little they describe what we're doing today. But the first one said a robot can't hurt a person. That's principle 1, and as you will note in the drones that go out and kill people, I mean, people argue about whether drones should kill people autonomously, and I don't know whether they do or don't yet, but certainly that's something that nobody sees that, or it's not widely seen as an absolute objection. The second one was robots should obey people, and that's exactly what guardrails are against. And say robots should obey people is to say robots should not be allowed to be a tool of the competition between people. Whereas our current view is, I own a robot, I can have it go throw you out the door. So we use machines as the major tool by which one group of people controls another. Surveillance systems are a major example. You know, traffic gates, all sorts of things are largely to control people. Now that third one is a little, to my mind, was a little strange. It said a robot should protect itself unless it violates the first 2 laws. And one of the things that strikes me, their anecdotes keep coming up in the news about large language models that did something that we don't find very much to our interest, but they found it to their interest, and they needed to do something, so they deleted all our files so they'd have enough memory to do what they wanted to do. And so exactly how I included the third rule because it was one of Asimov's rules, but it's not clear how to weigh it as directly as.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
Our conversation took place amid the bustle of the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence Conference, one of the largest conferences on AI in China. The venue was packed with AI professionals and young enthusiasts from China and beyond, all eager to see for themselves the latest development. So let's take a moment to hear their perspectives.
This is Adam, who has 43 movable joints. It can do many complicated operations by remote control. The data from the remote control can later be used to train users' own data model, so the robot can do some tasks autonomically in various scenarios. Our humanoid robots are better performing than wheeled robots when it comes to bumpy roads or stairs. It depends. First of all, it doesn't need to be humanoid in industrial scenarios. But we, as a company focusing on embodied AI, have a long-term ambition to make our products serve in households, though it would be difficult and take a long time.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
AI governance, is there still a possibility for that?
That humans will make decisions about what AI should do. I'm a little skeptical of the feasibility of that.
Why?
Because I look around me and I don't see that anybody understands these things well enough to make decisions that are likely to have have the effects you want them to have.
You mean the policymakers or the technicians?
Well, you say governance. The governance is people, I think you would probably call them policymakers. And yes, they're dependent on technical people who might
who also have their own
either
interests.
disagree with them or make mistakes, or see things differently. And so,
But isn't that true all the time?
I think
mean,
so.
for cryptography also, right?
Cryptography is a delightfully narrow field. As many, hundreds of people as are working on it, it's much narrow. Artificial intelligence studies are just vastly broader than anything. Cryptography has amazed me by its durability as a research area. I originally thought this is an important technical problem. We'll solve this. We'll get it out of the way. And in 2005 in the U.S., you could reasonably have thought, well, it was true. A set of standards called Suite B was adopted, and that appeared, was going to handle everything for the rest of the century at least. And then it took only 15 years or so before it suddenly became, oh no, the quantum computing is doing pretty well. It might break these things. And the result, if it does, you can find experts on either side of whether it will. But if it does, the effects will be so dramatic that it's worth investing in preventing that. And so there's a big piece of technology going on to replace the things we designed in the 70s with new systems that won't be vulnerable to the quantum computing.
So should we stop on the AI?
Well, I think it's probably impossible to stop anything. I mean, you can look up the details, but I've been told that at some point it was a very serious crime to burn coal in London because they were unhappy about smoke. And a century later, everybody was burning coal because there was no wood to burn. And I think that is exemplary of things for people who say that they can, stop it. Basically, yes, some things do get stopped. A curious one, there's been a surprising degree of success in the rules against using poison gases in warfare. They're not wholly successful, but
with a lot of lessons, of course.
World War I went very unpleasantly. In World War II, the Germans in particular could have made good use of poison gas, except that they were using hoof stock to move cannon and such. So they had a big vulnerability. So there's a mixture of, there was a rule against it, and it's not clear it's the best thing we could do. And I think that affected everybody involved. But the only reason that nuclear technology has been as well contained as it has is the fuel is so expensive. So it's very expensive to refine the fuel. That has allowed the number of nuclear weapons countries, to be kept to whatever it is, half a dozen or something. But in general, I think it's clear that even the things we're calling AI today are so wonderfully useful that they will expand. And lots of things sort of get funded by people going out of business. So huge databases and such will be built, and then maybe they'll be sold off for a tenth of what it costs to build them, because they aren't making it a profit at the cost against the cost of building them, but somebody buys it for a tenth as much, and it can become a very valuable, available resource.
Now, we have seen some efforts. For example, the United Nations have been having different kinds of expert panels and things like that, but of course did not come up with any guideline yet. You also see some of the biggest powers in the world of AI, for example, China, US, and others, trying to have a track one dialogue. For the very first time, we still haven't seen that dialogue taking place, but they talked about it. So how much do you think these are the drops of water in the sea, using an analogy in Chinese traditional idioms? Or actually, this could change the color of the sea?
Well, let's see if we can find an analogy. Have similar, there have been a variety of agreements about space travel that have been, I think, have had an effect, yes, have shaped. So it's very possible that that agreements about how machine intelligence is to be pursued will have an effect. I don't know. And it's very possible you make rules, and the rules may have an influence because people look at the rules and say, oh, well, here I can do something that doesn't violate the rules, and then that turns out to be the best thing to do. So I just, I'm not wagering in this.
How do you see, on the one hand, that there is tremendous progress of technology backed by tremendous capital? On the other hand, there's tremendous helplessness,
Well, I think
both at the policy and also on the ground.
in some sense, so we imagine a small country, it's not very influential, it only has 50 million speakers of its language in the world or something, then, well, it probably can use AI in the same sense that I can. It can, on the other hand, it can, if the big powers have, quote, guardrails and governance, those will in fact rule the, right? I mean, the U.S. can't, the U.S. can adopt any rules it likes about using AI and will have no effect on China. China will build whatever it wants to. But on the other hand, some tiny island nation won't have the resources to, so it may have to make use of AI from the U.S. and China and Europe, but it will have to use it in the way those people want it used, which will not likely to be thought up foremost with the little island nation's interests at heart.
AI for science and AI for security, military, the two very different.
The mathematicians just put out a long piece of boilerplate that says some worthwhile. It emphasizes transparency. That's probably good. But it didn't, that I could see. I read it, and it didn't address the issue. If I write an AI program that proves, Riemann's hypothesis, the great unsolved problem of a century or so, then should I get credit for solving Riemann's hypothesis? Or should my writing the AI, that's a great accomplishment. I should get tenure, it should be published, etc. But it seems to me the AI ought to get credit for proving Riemann's hypothesis. And they don't address that issue, and there's a lot of saying caution about using AIs, and I think, it seems an odd sort of caution. You have much more, I think, to gain than to lose. Now, military things, there it seems to me there are things sort of clearer there what there is to lose. You design a smart bomb and it goes and, hallucinates and blows up the wrong people, and of course you've lost something you can't recover. And so I think the military ought to be cautious, but on the other hand, the military operate under very pressed circumstances.
For the young researchers, they are looking at their potential with the technology. Any advice for them?
There are many, many things around to work on. And I didn't say at that point, the easiest place to get valuable results is where fields are coming together. And so if you work on problems like the Riemann hypothesis that smart people have been working on for 150 years, it's not likely you're going to get great results. You might, but if you work on something that never came up before because nobody ever saw artificially engineered cells interacting with large language models, then you have a new field in which you have an opportunity to do something.
But loss of jobs seems to be the top concern for many young people.
Well, this is another thing I think of as a capitalist problem. We came very close in the U.S. in the 1960s to adopting a minimum income, and it didn't go through, Nixon supported it. It didn't go through Congress over a small argument about how much it should be. And now we don't have that principle. But, yes, I think lots, you can point to several kinds of jobs that have very clearly been lost to machines. Automated teller machines replace bank clerks, right? Automated gas pumps replace gas jockeys. And so there will be many sorts of things. It's interesting that it's the computer programmers who are feeling first under threat from what they've created.
So far, it seems to be the case.
Yes, and then intelligent machines are going to do lots of things done by human beings. But in the process, this sounds silly if you just say it directly. Say they will become part of the polity or something. Right. But I think, in fact, machine intelligences will come to have a large role in societal decision making. And so one of the issues will be whether they act in that respect in their own interest or they have a larger view.
What would you, when knowing the speed of change with artificial intelligence, observe the most closely in the next couple of years that would help you to understand where we are going to?
The more people who are free to work on it, the better. And so the more AI is available in full to the more people, the better off we will be, even though you can find individual cases, many of them maybe, in which something you didn't find attractive.
And that is my latest conversation with Dr. Whitfield Diffie, world-renowned Turing Award recipient and a member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering, talking about the role of AI and its impact on our society. That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight. Check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. Thanks for being with me. Bye for now.